Okay, let me.
Hey, this is the second workshop.
Yeah. Okay, let's just start now.
Whoop-de-doo.
Whoop-de-doo. Welcome to Intro to Game Programming Workshop 2. In this workshop, we're going to learn about variables and if statements. I'm Kevin.
I'm Diane. I don't know if we have to do this every workshop, but sure.
Sure. We don't have to. Um, I guess Chris is also in the chat.
Oh, I am a conscientious observer
Yes.
at best.
Alrighty, let's go. Okay, variables. So, a variable is something that stores a value. Um, so, for example, we can have a variable that stores the player's name. Like in this example, we said player name is equal to Chris. Yeah, and that's how you make a variable. I
It's that
mean,
simple, folks.
yeah. I guess I can go a bit more in depth about what this is called. This is called a variable assignment because we're assigning a value to a variable. So, and it always has this sort of syntax where you have the variable name on the left, an equal sign, and then the value you want to put in the variable.
Yeah. And this will differ, language by language, but specifically for, well, in basically every language, you'll have like the variable name on the left, an equal, and then whatever you want to set it to on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times, well, not a lot of the times, but sometimes you want to just like declare it first and not like set anything. So in RenPy, you would do like define, like the keyword define, and then space, then your name, your variable name. And then you can choose whether or not to set it equal to something. You might just set it to like say you have like a money variable, and then you set it to 0 for now, but it can be changed later.
Mm-hmm. And what was the difference between define and default again?
Oh, so define, so last week we went over like putting characters in the visual novel. So define, we use define for the characters because they aren't going to change. Like we're never really going to need to change them. And default is like you're setting a default version of the variable that can change later.
Mm.
So say like say you have a money variable, you would use default because you want the player's like money value to change later. Like, oh, the default value for money is like 0, but down the line it can change to like we can add like 5 or like 10 or whatever.
I see. Gotcha. Okay. So, so in general, default is for stuff that changes, and define is for stuff that doesn't change.
Basically,
Basically.
this is RenPy specific stuff, but
Yeah.
in other languages you would do like there's this keyword called like const, which stands for like constant, and so like the like parallel in other programming languages would be like const money is equal to something, and then you wouldn't be able to change that value.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's about declaring or creating a variable. Now we're going to talk about how you use a variable in your script. So you can read the value of a variable by referring to it by its name. In this case, RenPy has a special syntax. If you want to use a variable in dialog, you put these square brackets around it. And what that does is it takes the value of the variable and just like plugs it into wherever those square brackets are. So as you can see here, the player name is Chris, and then in our dialog it says nice to meet you, and then it has that variable player name. So when RenPy runs the game, it's gonna fill in that variable with the value Chris. Okay. So why are they useful? Why are variables useful? So variables can be used to store user choices, and user choices can be used to influence the direction of a story. So a few examples. Hopefully it's not lagging. It's kind of lagging on my end. Okay. So a couple examples of user choices in a game. If you're doing some sort of like dating sim, you might have a user choice like, what gift did I buy for a certain character, like Sam? And then another user choice is, should I leave Sam behind to fight the zombies? You know, no. That's an example of like a variable that either is true or false. And then another user choice is like, what weapons should you equip for your fight with Zombie Sam? So these are all examples of user choices. And the next slide, I'll show you. Yeah, and this is how you might represent them as variables.
Mm-hmm. And it can the like variables can come in like a bunch of different sorts and sizes. Like it's not always like words. Well, in programming we call them strings or numbers. They can also be just plain true and false, which is what we call booleans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, generally, you don't want to mix the two together, like two of different types together, because then you don't exactly know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, many different data types. You know, booleans, numbers, strings, and we'll get some practice with each one of them. Okay. And you can also use variables to store information about the player and the world. So, for example, if you're making an RPG, you can use variables to store like the strength, the intelligence, the defense values. In a dating sim, you might variables to store like the affinity levels that you have, your love interests. And then you can also use variables to store things about the world. For example, the time remaining before you have to escape the Titanic, or like the weather. I don't know. Yeah. So all like you can save information in variables. Example. So we're gonna show an example of uh, using variables to change the dialogue. Here. So this is just the empty project that we made in the last workshop. But you can start like a new empty project if you want. And I basically defined two characters, Sam and me. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna write label start. That's where our program starts. And we want a menu that lets us choose the gift for Sam. So we're gonna write menu. Want some sort of message to show up, like what gift And the choices are, let's say, 10. And we'll create this label later. Let's say dump after shopping. And then let's say another gift that you can buy is, I don't know, like, what kind of gift do people like? Let's see.
Candy.
Candy. Let's go
I want candy right now.
I don't actually eat that much. I find it way too sweet.
Wow. How could you?
Oh yeah. So we created this label after shopping, so we need that label here. And let's just say after you shop, you run into Sam, so you give it to. There you go, Sam. And then Sam can say something like, "Thanks for giving me this item or this gift." So we need a variable to store the name of the gift that you bought. So let's do that here. First, we're going to declare our variable using the default gift equal to a gel. This is just a default value that you're giving to the variable. So this ensures that when you load the game, this variable has a value. Otherwise, your code might crash. Try to like reference it. And then let's say when you buy a gel pen, you set the gift variable to gel pen. Buy candy. Ooh, candy. Okay. So we're setting the value of gift right now, but we're not actually reading the value anywhere. So let's actually use it in a piece of dialog. Here where Sam says, "Thanks for giving me this gift," you can replace gift with square brackets, and inside those square brackets, what that's going to do is that's going to read the value of gift and put it into this piece of dialog. About a gel pen, it says, "Thanks for giving me this gel pen." If you buy candy, it says candy. Hopefully it catches up. Okay. I'm going to launch the project. Looks R to enable auto reload. Happens when I click start. So it says, "What gift should I buy for Sam?" Gel pen? Give me this gel pen. B, it replaced this square brackets gift with gel pen because that's what we assigned variable gift. Back and candy. Thank you for giving this candy. So that's how you use variables in dialogue. I want to dialogue based. Any question?
What if I want to do it with numbers instead?
Number. Okay. if you want to use numbers, actually, I haven't tried this. I wonder if does RenPy convert numbers? If I say gift equals 5,
It should.
Yeah. It'll basically give you it'll assign that number to that variable. So if you're to call it up later, say, hey, if gift equals this amount or whatever, then bam, there we go. We
uh,
have it.
okay. I was kind of worried because if you assign it a number, I didn't know how RenPy would react when you put it in a dialogue.
Very well, actually. Well,
Python is very loosey with types.
I thought I
yeah,
had to do type conversion.
Don't worry about it.
don't trip. It's
That,
actually
that,
really
that's
neat.
basically Python in a nutshell. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just be careful in that, like, if you're doing, say, like C++, this might not work exactly.
Yeah.
Make it well.
Yeah, you'll probably have to do some explicit type conversion, like telling it to convert the number to a string.
But that's if you're working in like Unreal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're going to learn about if statements. And if statements are really useful for doing things based on a certain condition. So an if statement will run a block of code if a certain condition is met. So in this example, we have an if statement that says if the gift is equal to gel pen, we show this piece of dialogue. This is exactly what I wanted. And then I'm just expanding on why we use this equals equals sign. So equals equals is used to compare if two values are equal. So here it's checking if the value of gift is equal to gel pen. The reason we use double equals and not single equals is because we already use single equals for variable assignment. Let me just jump back here. Yeah. So since single equals is reserved for variable assignment, double equals is used for comparing things. Okay. And then for numbers, we can use some more comparison operators. You probably know these already. They're like less than, greater than, and then less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And you write them this way. You put, like for less than or equal to, you put the less than sign and then equals. And then greater than is something similar. It's greater than, and then the equal sign afterwards. Okay. Actually, let's just practice a bit of using if statements. So let's say, okay, let me change this gift back to candy so it makes sense. So let's say after Sam receives the gift, Sam says an optional piece of dialogue in case you give Sam, let's say Sam really likes candy. So Sam will say something extra if you buy candy. So to do that, let's say if gift equals candy, Sam says, I really like sweet things. They give me a boost of energy too. Okay. And again, because we're working in Python, indentation is really important. So anything that you want to happen only under a certain condition has to be indented under the if statement. If it's not indented, it's going to run normally. It's going to run whether or not the condition is true. So make sure to indent properly. So let's try this out. I'm going to choose candy. Sam, thank you for giving me this candy. And then we should see an extra piece of dialogue because we gave her candy. I really like sweet things. They give me a boost of energy too, yeah. If we go back and choose gel pen, you're going to see we don't get that extra piece of dialogue. So that's how we can show conditional dialogue.
And really, like, how far you can stretch this is only really limited by your creativity and how you want to structure your game. Because honestly, with just this stuff, you can go a pretty long way with visual novel stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about combining conditions. So if you want to check if two conditions are true, you can use the AND symbol. So in this example, we're checking if gift is equal to gel pen and affinity is greater than 12. And the thing about the AND keyword is both conditions have to be true for this block to run. So if either one of them, if at least one of them is false, then this block won't run. Or something similar, or checks if at least one condition is true. So gift equals gel pen or affinity equals 12. If either of those conditions is true, then it'll run the block of code. And then not is just to check like the reverse, like check if a condition is false. So here, if the gift is not gel pen, then say a piece of dialogue. And then you can make really long conditions by combining and, or, and not. And I highly recommend using parentheses if you start to like combine and, or, and not a lot, because it can get kind of confusing, like which order your conditions are being evaluated in. There is an order of operations. It goes not, and, or, but I still highly recommend using parentheses just so you know exactly which order they're being evaluated.
Yeah, because you're not just writing this to like make game work. You're also writing this for like when you look at this in a month and you're like, oh, how does this work again?
Yeah, you can really forget what your code does, and then you kind of scratch your head for a long time trying to figure it out.
Like, why did I do this again?
Why did I add this extra print statement? And then you remove it, and then your game crashes for some reason.
And then you're like, ah, yes.
Okay. So that's if statements, and then using and, or, not. RunPy specifics, we already talked about default and define. Default is for giving variables a default value, and define is for creating constants, things that don't normally change. Other than that, Diane, do you have any other RenPy specific things about variables and if statements that you want to mention?
I mean, I think you have it on your next slide, but specifically with save files and rollback. So like when you in RenPy, there's a feature in RenPy where you can go back in a statement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can basically rewind and try like a different menu choice, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you like say we use like the example project, you can like what the game does is it basically like if you choose a menu choice, if the player chooses like the say the gel pen menu choice and then they decide, oh, I don't want to do this, let me go backwards, it'll basically like unapply the statement, like uh it'll basically undo setting the variable
Yeah.
and then replace it with like the one that was there before.
Yeah, that's really interesting about RenPy. It like stores a history of all the variables in your game. So like when you roll back to a previous piece of dialogue, like all the variables also roll back, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so like if you can like scroll up the code real quick because I don't know what gift is set to by default.
It's set to gel pen.
Okay, so it's like if gift is set to gel pen by default, and then like if they choose the candy option, then it gets set to candy. But then they decide, wait, I don't want to do this. Let me like roll back and choose gel pen. Like it'll actually like basically like change it from candy back to gel pen, like
Mm-hmm.
in that moment of time, basically.
Yeah.
And so like usually this doesn't mean a terribly large amount for you. Like it just means that it's more convenient for players to explore all the options your game has. Um, but it is something to take note of that like, oh, if potentially like noting where your variable like assignments are. So say like what's it called? Like instead of like setting the variable right after you choose the menu statement, you put it like in the after shopping label or something.
Mm-hmm.
Say you put like gift candy like right after label after shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Then regardless of which label you choose, it would still run the gift candy like assignment.
Yeah.
So that thing is also um something that you need to pay attention to, like the flow of like when your variables are getting assigned and when you check them.
Yep.
Mhm. That will mess you up so fast. It's the primary reason why I got frustrated with.
Um,
Uh. Oh yeah. Let's talk about when you update your game and it has more variables. Like what happens?
mm-hmm.
So I learned the reason you have default isn't only because it like gives default value to your to default value to your variable when it starts, but it's also um like if you make a save file, let's say in version 1 of your game, and then you update your game to version 2 and it has like more variables, um what default does is when it loads that old save file from the old version of the um it's
Oh, like basically, this is the default it's gonna set it to if the variable doesn't exist, quote unquote, in the save file.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like if the variable doesn't exist in version 1 and the save file is from version 1, but then you introduce the variable in version 2, then it's gonna set the variable to the default. So in cases where like say somebody loads their save and they're like halfway through the game and you just like you only recently added like a say like a I don't know, like let's say a money variable again. And let's say like halfway through the game you're supposed to have at least like $100 or something. You'll need to take notice of that if people are already playing your game and they load their game and they're like, wait, we have money now, but I only have $0 and now I'm like stuck in this place or whatever. So basically, it's something that you have to make sure that you need to take notice of like you're trying to maintain backwards compatibility between releases. Like oh, I already released the game. Now I'm adding like these things to the game. You need to think about uh, how it's going to affect the game and existing save files.
Yeah. Let's just do an example of that right now. You said money, right? So
Yeah.
let's try creating a save file with just the gift variable. I'll just say this. So now we have a save file with quote unquote version 1. Now, let's just try adding the money variable, but without using this default. So, add a piece of dialogue here. I now have money. Let's say when you buy a gel pen, money, or before we even, and when you buy the gel pen, you do 5. When you buy the key, you do really expensive candy. So we load a save. Okay, go back to the main menu. Try to load a save. Okay, and then we try to happen. Okay, so as you can see in our dialog, it didn't actually fill in the value of the variable. It says I now have dollar square brackets money in my wallet. So in this case, when we loaded the save file, it couldn't find the money variable. So when we had a piece of dialog that uses the money variable, like, what? I can't find this variable. So it doesn't fill it in and it just leaves it like with the square brackets.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of like it's something that only takes a bit of time to do, so you might as well do it.
Yeah.
Because there's not really a downside other than unless you're intending for the variable not to exist between versions, but
That's kind of like an edge case.
I can't really think of a reason to do that.
So it's just generally good practice to like pair your top of the script and all to give. Main and try loading the save file from so it doesn't have the money variable in it. And yeah, so now it says I now have $10 in my wallet. So even though our old save file didn't have a money variable in it, when the game loaded, it gave money a default value of 10. Oh, is there anything else? I mean, I guess in this case, it sort of failed gracefully. Like, it didn't give you any errors. But
I mean, to be honest, like silent errors are kind of bad because it's like it's doing the wrong thing, but now you don't like you won't know it's doing the wrong thing immediately.
yeah.
Like your very unhappy nephew or something. You don't know that he's unhappy until it's way too late.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, like I can write some code that'll actually make it crash.
Kevin, that's evil. You can't do that. What will they do with the children? Somebody touched my spaghetti.
Okay, so an if statement that checks if money is equal to 5. So we run this. Let's see. Should crash.
Oh, that's how you do it.
Hmm. It still tell me. Oh, because okay. I remember I fixed it. The default.
I accidentally fixed it.
I accidentally fixed it.
Whoops.
I want my code to be buggy.
For once, you want to be not good at your job.
There we go. Okay. So we crashed the game. That's what we wanted.
Hey, we did it.
Did it. That says
No hicimos.
yeah, it like tells us the error name money is not defined. Basically telling what happened to the variable, or it's saying like, hey, I never saw this variable called money before. So yeah, that's what happens if your save file doesn't have a variable that you're getting. So just in general, if you're gonna have variables in your game, it's good practice to declare them at the top of the file and give them a default value. Anything? I don't know. Is there anything else to talk about?
Not that I can think of.
As far as this topic goes, I think we're fine.
Okay. Yes, in the next workshop, we'll talk about loops. I don't know. Wait, when would you use loops in RenPy?
Specifically, if you want something that is a process. So, like for example, something I did for Oracle was a fight mechanic, and you would kind of have it follow this thing where as long as HP is above 0, then you go through the process of selecting an attack and or an item, and it'll keep going through that ad nauseum or until you're at 0.
I see.
So it's basically just for like repeatable processes.
You can have a battle system in.
Dude, I can send you the code maybe if I can. It's
I
actually
mean,
really easy.
when you think about it, it is just kind of like a for loop that you can jump into.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I may not be good at code, but I know a few things. I know a thing or two. It's more powerful than you could have ever imagined.
Okay. I guess we can end this now. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.